Hello, Tara McNamara, and welcome to Turner Classic Movies.
Thank you for having me.
As a film critic and journalist, you are a familiar face to TCM fans who have attended the film festival because you've presented movies there for years. But this is your first time on the network, and we're very happy to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. I think this is a really fun spotlight that we're doing. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yes. So this is an idea that you helped us come up with and put together. It's a really interesting 5-night series that we're going to be doing all month. Every Monday night in July, we're going to be looking at pairs of films. One movie came out before the code was strictly enforced, and the other one came out after it was strictly enforced. So why do you think this is such an interesting endeavor for us to do?
I think it's really fascinating to look at the change that occurs in the way that content and taboo topics get covered because of the code. So, we grew up with Mr. Rogers, and he said, "We are what we watch." And it's so true. And they were even saying this 100 years ago with Thomas Edison's The Kiss protest started. And so all of these protests led to a needing for the studios to kind of control it, and especially because there was government regulation. So they came up with the code. They had Will Hayes administer it. But in the early days, in our pre-code era, which means there was a code, it's just that the relationship between the studios and the office were a little different. They were really their ally in trying to get material passed through censors who would, inevitably take it and be like, "We don't like this," and they would cut it up into shreds, and then whatever would get to moviegoers would be confusing and not artistic. So then the Depression happens, and so studios just want to sell movie tickets, and they know sex sells. So what do? They don't abide by the code, and of course, the people who get outraged at these things get outraged, and in 1934, we have a code. And the difference is striking. So that's what we're going to look at tonight.
Yeah, so the first pair of movies are both Waterloo Bridge films. The first from 1931, directed by James Whale and starring Mae Clark. The second one that we'll show later from 1940, directed by Mervyn LeRoy with Vivien Leigh. Quite different.
Yes.
But let's focus on the first one. As people may know, this is the story of a streetwalker and a soldier who meet in London on Waterloo Bridge in the middle of a bombing raid. And this one does have some racy components to it. What is it about this version of Waterloo Bridge that is emblematic of a pre-code era film?
Well, it's about a prostitute. There we go. That is definitely not allowed according to the code.
But it got by.
It did. And so, they would put things at this time into context. So they would have these code rules, but the Hayes office saw it as, what's the takeaway message? I mean, it's interesting. I work at Common Sense Media, and we guide parents to help them make decisions. And we do this as well. We identify what the problems are, and then we let you know, but what's the takeaway? So in this case, they were like, okay, look, yes, she's a prostitute. But, they said Meyer's situation is shown as repulsive and without glamour, and it is amply shown that only grief and unhappiness can come from a life of immorality.
Yeah, they're not celebrating it.
Yeah, they're like, you're not gonna wanna go be a prostitute after you see this movie, so it's fine.
And that's something that we're gonna encounter a lot in this next month of looking at these films. It's all about what the moral of the story is, what the audience takeaway is, and if it was deemed to have been a cautionary tale or something of that sort, then in some cases it was able to skirt by, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna see this come up again and again, and then once the code gets enforced, they don't have time for such shenanigans anymore.
Right.
That never happens again.
When Joseph Breen comes on the scene in 1934, things change a lot. Are there any moments that people should look out for as particularly pre-code-ish in this film?
Absolutely. In fact, right at the opening, Mae Clark delivers her first lines in a see-through, snug bra. You're just like, how did that get through? And the way it did is that they would look at, the Hayes office would look at the script, and then they would shoot it. And then they would make recommendations about what to do. So they said, could you just cut the most noticeable part?
Wow, definitely something to watch out for. All right, well, let's take a look at the movie from 1931, directed by James Whale and starring Mae Clark and, in a supporting role, Bette Davis. We'll talk more about her afterwards. Here is Waterloo Bridge.